Welcome to the Measurement Doctor Podcast. The doctors are in the house. And now your hosts, George and Lori Gill. All right, Lori, welcome to today's session. We got a really great session today.
I know, we do. It is kind of weird, though, having the video aspect going.
It is. How's my hair? Everything's good. All right, we're off and rocking. All right, today we have a really special guest, Stuart Harrison from the Chamber of Commerce, Peterborough Chamber of Commerce. Going to give a little bio here on Stu. He's the president and CEO of the Greater Peterborough Chamber of Commerce. He's been there for 11 years. 11 years, Stu?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's a long time.
That is, okay. 13 years as a small business owner, man after my own heart. 10 years in media management, promotion, and marketing. And 10 years in radio. Maybe I should just hire you. All right. It's recipient of the 2009 Executive of the Year from the Chamber of Commerce Executives of Canada.
We'll have all this posted in the show notes.
We absolutely will in the show notes. Recipient of the 2012 James Gordon Carnegie Memorial Award from the Chamber of Executives of Ontario for outstanding service as a leader and a mentor. That's really exciting. And talking to you pre-show, I can see how that mentorship goes into some of the other activities that you're involved in and doing. So that's awesome. Recipient of the 2013 Bernie Gillespie Memorial Award from the Ontario Chamber of Commerce and the Chamber Leadership. And the 2014 Peterborough Pathway of Fame inductee for literary media. Wow, that's quite the introduction.
I know.
Welcome, Stu.
Thank you very much. I'm suddenly worried about my own hair.
You look awesome.
Yeah. You're a natural. Don't worry about it. All right. So why don't we get started? Obviously, we're here to talk to you today a bit about the Chamber of Commerce as a whole. I think it's a really interesting topic. When Lori brought the idea to our editorial meeting, said, this is something that for such a long time has played a significant role in business, but things have changed. So we want to know, today, how does it play a role today in today's environment? So why don't we start out by you telling us a little bit about yourself and the Chamber and how you actually got there?
My background, as you pointed out so deftly, kind of led me in this direction. In the end, it was the perfect job for me, and hopefully I was perfect for the job as well, because I had a background in the community, starting out in media, and then getting into marketing. A lot of the marketing was involving the business community, so it was kind of the space that I was operating in as far as my business is concerned. And just kind of knew all of the people. I was a member of the Chamber, joined because of the Chamber benefits program, and then started serving on committees, went to the business after hours and got to know the people. And so I kind of understood the Chamber world as well. And then when the job came up, it just was suddenly, like I've been thunderstruck. It was just suddenly the perfect job. And thank God I got it. I think I'd have needed therapy if I hadn't, because I was heavily invested once the opportunity presented itself. And it just opened up a whole new world, both within the community here and then within the Chamber community as well, because there's quite a network out there of other chambers across the province and across the country.
Right, excellent. Now, we're going to get into some of the details about the Chamber and what exactly it consists of today. I know you mentioned there the benefits was something that attracted you, and I know just from my knowledge of chambers that the benefits package is something that is an attraction to a lot of small businesses that can't necessarily get those benefit packages elsewhere reasonably. So I know that's a factor, but I think there's a lot more to it, and I'd like to definitely cover into that. But the Chamber, just so that for those listeners that don't know a lot about the Chamber of Commerce, can you tell a little bit about how it works? So, like, it's membership based, right? Or maybe it's not. I don't know. How does it all work today?
So the typical structure of a chamber is that it's based on membership. Usually it's about half of our revenue comes from simply our members paying their annual membership fee. We've got 3 levels of membership, and we've got about 1,000 members of our chamber. You can have chambers, the Havelock Chamber, for example, has 30 members. They pay $100 a piece, and they operate the tourist information caboose every summer in Havelock. So, and you can have massive chambers, the Toronto Board of Trade, the Vancouver Board of Trade, the Edmonton Board of Trade. So it's everything in between. Typically, we're involved in supporting the business community, and I can get into that fairly deeply as far as our philosophy about exactly what we do, what you get as a member. But the core work of the chamber is essentially a lobby group for business. That's the core mandate of most chambers across the country.
And that lobbying is towards government, local governments, right up to a national level?
Yeah, and that's where the network comes in. I mentioned it earlier, but there's our local chamber, for example. We have a full-time policy analyst. Sandra Dueck does a lot of work both locally with municipal councils, both city and the county council. And then she's also quite a leader, actually, within the provincial network. She's the chair of the Ontario Caucus, for example. There's an Ontario Chamber of Commerce. They have professional policy staff as well. There's a network of other chambers across the province that are all involved. Many of them have policy analysts as full-time employees. And so we're all working either on our own grassroots issues within a community, or at the provincial level on issues that affect the provincial government and business within the province of Ontario. And there's lots of issues that affect business within the province of Ontario, and we could get right into that if you want. And nationally, it's the same thing nationally. There's a Canadian Chamber of Commerce. All of the provincial organizations belong. We belong. We're a member of both the Ontario Chamber and the Canadian Chamber of Commerce. And there's an official policy process where we, for example, can put forward a policy resolution on a number of issues. One that we've got in front of both the Ontario Chamber and Canadian Chamber is on support for Energy East, which is the pipeline running from the oil sands through to the East Coast. And so we're supporting that. Largely because it's good economic development. There's 1,200 businesses that are doing business in the oil sands in Ontario, and General Electric, for example, and a number of other local businesses are directly involved in that project. And Energy East itself, just building the pipeline, will create 250 jobs at GE in Peterborough. So we're a lobby group, and we don't apologize for that. We recognize that there are a lot of issues around the oil sands. It's a highly regulated industry, and the pipeline will be built only if it passes all of the rules and regulations set out by the National Energy Board. That's good enough for us. We're lobbying in favor of it because it's a job creator, and particularly here in Peterborough. So that's just one example, and we've actually written policy on that, and we've got a policy resolution in place. It was approved at the Ontario Chamber, and it'll be at the Canadian Chamber Conference in Ottawa in October, and we're hoping for support from that. We've got co-signers on that, chambers right across every province that the pipeline will run through. So there's significant support for it. Just one example, and I could give you dozens of examples of the lobby group, of the lobby work that we do as a chamber.
Okay, let's just bring it back here for a second, because you mentioned a lot of information there, and I just want to clarify, because of a lot of our listeners are local across Canada, but also across the United States and around the world, actually. We have people write into us. Is the chamber just Canadian, or is it across the U.S.? Is it international? Is it Europe? Where are the chambers?
In the U.S., for example, it's a very similar structure. There would be local chambers, there would be state chambers, there would be regional chambers. A lot of the U.S. Larger cities are creating regional chambers of commerce, sort of an umbrella organization for a metropolitan area, for example, but still run by those grassroots chambers. Europe, for example, in a lot of European countries, chamber membership is mandatory. Sign me up for that.
Mandatory, really?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it actually speaks to one of the core principles that we talk about, and that is the credibility of belonging to a chamber of commerce. There's sort of an inherent reputational benefit from belonging to a chamber, where a consumer, in fact, they've studied this, 63% of consumers are more likely to do business with you if they know that you're a member of the Chamber of Commerce. So
Wow.
there's sort of this reputational advantage. In Europe, it's almost like having a business registration. You just become a member of the chamber. But in Europe, there's sort of legislated standards that you have to meet. We do a lot of document certification here because for our local exporters, companies that are manufacturing things here that they're exporting to European countries, those European countries demand some sort of chamber certification. So we have to go through all of their documents and certify that they're accurate, that this is what's in the package, all of that sort of thing, because the European countries demand it. So it's kind of a little bit different in some specific ways, but generally speaking, a chamber of commerce is a chamber of commerce.
Okay, and is there any cross-border type of work that gets done?
Yeah, there's a lot of work that is done on common issues. The border, for example, there's a significant amount of work between the Ontario Chamber and the neighboring states. At the federal level, Canadian Chamber and U.S. Chamber work quite closely together on national, international issues. I guess you could frame it: trade agreements, border issues, security, things like that. There's a lot of back and forth there.
Okay, so we have local chambers, we have provincial chambers, we have national chambers, we have chambers in other countries. All of that's great. Do I want to become a member of just my local chamber, or would I approach more of the Ontario Chamber, or what's the logic there?
Typically, when you're a local chamber member, you belong to all of it. You know, not every single chamber belongs to their provincial organization, but generally speaking, they do. And you're typically involved at the local level, which gets you everything else. For example, when you become a member of ours, you're a member of the Ontario Chamber. A percentage of your membership goes to the Ontario Chamber. We pay them an annual fee to be a member, and the same way that we pay the Canadian Chamber an annual fee to be a member. So you get it all when you join your local chamber, and that's where you should start.
Right.
There's still a membership structure at the provincial level, but it's more larger companies that want to be seen to be supportive, and they do sell memberships, but it's not sort of the same. It's not the same feel as the local business belonging to the local chamber.
And with the online world the way it is today, I mean, we do business everywhere pretty much. If there's an area that I tend to do a lot of business in, is it worth joining that chamber as well? Is there, or is it not really a benefit? I'm going back to your 63% comment, really, is what I'm asking about. Right?
And part of that is just whether or not you're going to be found, to be seen as a member in that area. You know, if you've got boots on the ground, then I would say that, yeah, you should be a member. But, you know, I'm also realistic about it. You can't be a member everywhere. We run into this quite a bit when you talk about the large chains, the Home Depots and the Walmarts and that sort of thing. Some of them are members in some communities, and some of them aren't. And in some ways, it's kind of, you know, how good you are at connecting on that local level. Some local chamber managers have managed to get the local Walmart on board, and some haven't. You know, some of them have large corporate policies that say, no, we're not going to be a member of the local chamber, because, you know, they're in every town. If you join every chamber, that could be hundreds of thousands of dollars for a big company. So, you know, I get that. But on an individual basis, someone like yourself, if you're doing business in a specific town and you want to be seen to be doing business in that town, joining the chamber is a pretty good investment. Even if it's just you who's saying, hey, we're a member of the local chamber, that's an advantage that you can bring to your sales pitch, if you will.
Right. Okay. So, let's play a little devil's advocate here. I've been a chamber member in the past. I mean, I've been in business for 27 years, so different types of businesses, yeah. So on and off in different locations and what have you. I mean, it's great to say, hey, I'd like to support, you know, the lobbying aspect and what have you. But, you know, let's say I'm a small business, I'm just getting started, or maybe I'm going, but, you know, all of a sudden, maybe the chamber seems like a fluff cost, if you will. Tell me why. What are the benefits or tools or resources? Why do I really need to be a chamber if maybe lobbying is kind of superficial at this stage for me in my business career?
Well, first of all, you're not the only person who asks that question. It's kind of, what do I get?
Dang.
You thought you were special.
That's how we describe it. And every chamber is different. We describe it in two ways. There's sort of two reasons to belong. One is strengthening the business community. So you're supporting the work that we do to strengthen the business community. And that's the lobbying work that we do. The other is strengthening your business. And we lay it out as essentially four key components. One is promoting your business. So all of the marketing that you can get when you join the chamber, right from having your business listed on our membership directory to having access to all of our social media outlets, being able to post on our Facebook page, being able to attend our events. So we do 3 different marketing or networking events every month. There's advertising in our newsletter. There's all sorts of ways to market your business. So that's number one, is promoting your business. The next thing would be just that reputational thing that I talked about. We call it Chamber Certified. We've actually got sort of some branding. It's a sort of a rubber stamp as if you've been certified as a chamber member. And that's that reputational thing that you can use. But that's actually branding that we've seen some local companies do that really effectively, where they use that stamp to say, hey, we're a member of the Chamber of Commerce, which means we subscribe to their code of conduct, and we're a business based on reputation. And that's the utopia for us. We love to see when people really get that aspect of it and take advantage of it. So that's number 2. We provide a ton of information. We're a content creator, and I can talk more about that, but that's a real advantage to be a chamber member, because you're tapped into that communication that we send out on a regular basis. We do a regular full page every Thursday in the daily paper. We do a weekly 3-minute television feature that talks about business news, Business 911 it's called. We've got a LinkedIn page that you can participate in. We send out legislative updates all of the time. So there's information, and we call it curated information, information that allows you to do a better job as a business person. We have free workshops every month. We call it Lunchbox Learning. Just bring your own lunch, sit in our boardroom, and we'll provide programming for you to help you do a better job as a business person. And then there's a whole piece called the affinity programs. Affinity is when you're affiliated with with an organization, and if you're a graduate of a university, you've seen this. The alumni are always sending you the advantages of belonging to the alumni. It's the same thing with a chamber. When you're a chamber member, as I mentioned, I got involved first of all because I wanted benefits, and benefits I'm talking about health benefits. For me, it was long-term disability and that sort of thing. Hit by a bus insurance is what I used to call it, so that if your income is interrupted, I was a self-employed sales guy, right? So if my income was interrupted, I wanted to be able to support my family. And you can get the chamber group insurance program does everything from basic income interruption to full health, medical, dental, eyewear benefits. There's other programs. So if you're taking credit card transactions in your business, you're probably paying 3+% per transaction. If you're a chamber member, you can pay 1.5%. So there's dramatic savings there if you're not on some sort of a plan belonging to the chamber and having that ability to just simply pay less for your transaction fees. And any business that does that is very familiar with their transaction fees. So if you're not part of some sort of a plan, either with a chamber or some other organization, like a trade association, like a restaurant, for example, there's the Restaurant Association that also has a plan, but the chamber has a really good plan. So those are affinity programs, and that's kind of the 4th reason to belong as far as what you get. And some people belong for one thing. We probably got 100 members who we never see. They just want the chamber insurance program and don't bother me, and that's okay.
Right. We're going to talk about that actually too a little bit. You want to ask me anything on the social side there? That was kind of interesting. He was mentioning some key social points. No?
Actually, I follow Stu's News, and I follow the Chamber, and I'm a member of Women's Business Network with Karen and some of the other ladies that work in your office. So, I mean, I know you guys are always promoting things socially, which is awesome.
How does that apply if with businesses again going? I keep leaning back to the online world because so much has changed in the last 5 to 10 years. You know, it's very common for an individual entrepreneur to start up a business in their house and, you know, never actually even per se do business locally in a lot of cases because the world has become very global. What essentially is your, I guess, vision for the future, or maybe you're actually doing it already today for the Chamber when it comes to social media and how it's going to play a role for its members?
So lots to say there. So just bring me back if I bring it around if I get off onto a tangent. But we've been called the original social network. I mean, we're 126 years old this year, the Peterborough Chamber of Commerce, but this is not your father's chamber. I think that
I like that line.
We're firmly planted in all of the new technology. We're pretty good at it. We're always looking to get better. We work really hard at it. And I would say that I understand if someone says, well, I don't really need to join the chamber. And in fact, if you look at the younger entrepreneurs and business people coming up, you know, they don't really need to join anything anymore. And increasingly, they're not. They're not joining service clubs. They're not joining churches. They're not joining chambers. You just don't really need it.
Right.
So I think you mentioned earlier it's sort of a fluff expense, and I understand that, but I also know that as chambers we have to remain relevant, and I firmly believe that we are, and I've certainly seen the people who get a mitt and get in the game, get involved in their chamber, for all of the reasons that I've mentioned and lots more. They get a lot out of it. They become very successful. Somebody once said, belonging to the chamber is not about selling things to each other. It's about knowing each other, because it's who you know that will make you successful. And I really believe that. I've seen people come in and sort of cower in the corner at a networking event and just gradually blossom to the point where they're the chair of our board and everybody knows them in town, and they've tripled their book. You know, we had an accountant who joined the chamber who was just terrified of speaking in public, and just blossomed in just by forcing herself to come out. And it's not all about networking. Probably a third of our members ever come to an event, and that's okay. But for the third of those people who need to meet people, it's an absolute gold mine. But you sort of get out of it what you put into it. So I think the question was essentially, is the chamber still relevant in an age of social media? I mean, if you look at 6,000 followers on our Twitter feed, if you look at the 1,000 people who've liked our Facebook page, the 1,000 people who follow us on LinkedIn and get engaged in the conversations that we get started there, I would say that that's fairly relevant. I think it could be a lot more relevant, and we continue to work on that and get better at it. But I would say that we're just as relevant when it comes to social media as we were 126 years ago. The original board of directors, one of the things that was said when they first chartered the Peterborough Chamber of Commerce, they said, we're here to make sure things work out right. And I think that's just as relevant today as it was 126 years ago. I mean, that's fundamentally what we do, whether we're making sure that you're paying less for your transaction fees, or we're making sure that the tax ratios are what they should be when it comes to paying your business taxes, to trying to generate jobs for the community. That's that's relevant. So hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, and I think you were quoting out some numbers there in social media, and that's really good. I'm glad to hear that you followed that up with that you're getting engagement as well. Are a lot of the programs that you're delivering, are you looking to technology to deliver some of those? Like, I know you mentioned the Chamber's not just a networking place, but networking is a big factor to it. I mean, from its roots, essentially, there's lots of opportunity there that that networking could be extended to social media. Is that kind of the direction as well to a certain degree, or?
I think it is. We certainly encourage it. Some people get it more than others, but we have rules of engagement for our Twitter feed, our Facebook page, our LinkedIn page, and the people who understand and utilize those really take advantage of the promotional opportunities. We allow people to post their own stuff. If you're having a Midnight Madness sale, then put it on our Facebook page. Just don't do it too often, right?
Right.
And we've got specific rules of engagement on how to go about that. But that's useful news. That's an online community, and it's an incredible tool if you know how to use it, and lots of people do. We had at a chamber conference one time, we had 4 young entrepreneurs. They all own their own business. None of them belong to a chamber of commerce. And we asked them to invent a chamber of commerce. If you were going to invent a chamber of commerce, what would it look like? The number one thing that they wanted was networking. They wanted to meet people. Mm-hmm. And, roll their eyes and say, well, it's kind of what we do, right?
Yep.
For us, we actually have a young professionals group that meets on a monthly basis. And it's sort of designed for younger people who are just getting started. Maybe they're a little bit nervous. They want to start creating some of their own networks, meet some of their peers, that sort of thing, become comfortable with it. They're always welcome at all of our events. We have a regular monthly PBX, and it used to be called a Business After Hours, but we've actually won an award for this concept. You mentioned Karen. Karen's the one who came up with this, borrowing liberally from another chamber, I have to be fair. But PBX is Peterborough Business Exchange.
That's good, because I was thinking it was a workout there. Go ahead.
Oh.
No, that's P90X.
PBX, Business Exchange. So instead of just having our chamber members get together every month and just mingle with each other, we invite another group in. So we meet in a different location every month. There's generally a theme to it. So we could have the Peterborough Chamber meets the Home Builders Association or the Women's Business Network, or we toured the new Fleming College facility, the Skilled Trade Center, so we partnered with the Home Builders Association for that. We've done one in Lakefield with the Lakefield Chamber of Commerce. So, the Kawartha Chamber of Commerce and Tourism is their official name. That sort of thing. I mean, what a huge opportunity if you need to meet people. Right. Every month you can come out and not only mingle with other chamber members, but an entirely new group of people, right? Fresh faces every month. So
that's actually a great segue, because I hear the passion in your voice when you're saying that, like, hello, come out, right? Like, get involved. So that's kind of going to lead me into, as a person on the inside who's seeing businesses come and go and grow over a long period of time. I mean, you've been in business on both sides, on your own and still a part of the chamber. What do you feel are 2 or 3 maybe of the most untapped resources that the chamber offers that businesses don't take advantage enough of, that you see in your experience?
So I don't want to hang my hat on or hang my neck on networking, because it's not for everybody. Not everybody needs it, and not everyone's comfortable with it. Myself, I'm not that comfortable with going to a business after hours. You really have to take a deep breath and go in, but typically I have a good time and I meet somebody, I learn something, that sort of thing. And we teach networking. We can show people how to make it really easy. Simply ask somebody about their business instead of having some convoluted elevator pitch. Just go in and talk to people and say, hey, tell me about your business. Nice to meet you, right? We're all here for the same reason.
Part of it, too, is not going in with the agenda to sell something.
Exactly. And many people make that mistake. So good point. So it's not networking. It's what I said earlier about getting to know people, because then they get to know you. We had a guy who joined last week who just moved up from Toronto, doesn't know anybody, and the only reason he's belonging to the chamber is because he just wants to meet people in the business community. It's a social thing for him, right? Mm-hmm. So even if it's not networking, just find something within the service offerings that we have that gives you that reason to join. Even if it's just supporting the work that we do, knowing that we're trying to create, the tide raises all ships. We're trying to create a better business community. And it could be something like the Esso card comes to mind. Not too many people know about the Esso discount card. As a chamber member, you can get a discount card that gives you 3.5 cents off a liter for your gasoline. So, whatever the reason happens to be, I would encourage you to find a reason, because that tide raises all ships argument is a really, really strong argument. And I think it does your business a world of good if you can say, I'm a member of the chamber.
The 63% alone has my head buzzing right at the moment. The fact is that I learn way more about my own business by asking other businesses about their business than I will ever learn just at talking about my business. So there are huge benefits in that, and even not from a quote-unquote networking perspective, as much as you're surrounding yourself with other entrepreneurs. And it doesn't really matter what they're doing. There's something to take away from those conversations, that value. So that's good. It's funny that we go back to that, but as much as we're headed down a path where, quote, the traditional type of networking is maybe not on the focus of young entrepreneurs or people coming new into business. It really comes down to that. I don't care what you do, whether it's online, offline.
Business is still about relationship building.
Relationships. It's about people.
It's about people. Yeah.
At the end of the day, somebody has to buy something somewhere.
Right. Yes.
Somewhere, somehow.
That's where it comes from. Everything else is just selling pizzas to each other.
There we go. All right.
Food.
What questions haven't we asked you that we should have about the chamber that would really benefit our listeners? Is there anything that we've missed?
I don't know. One of the things that surprises me, and I'm in the business, and that is the sheer volume of content that we create. And I think if you're following, for example, Lori, on our Facebook page or watching us on Twitter, you're really going to benefit from just the content that we create. I mentioned a full page article every week in the paper. That comes out every Thursday. That's a week's worth of research by our policy analyst, Sandra Dueck. And she's providing really, really solid information. It might be on legislation. It might be a policy position that we take. It might be on the cost of police services. It could be on Energy East. It could be on tax ratios, on and on and on. I could go on. Sure, her policy report card, which was just bullets, was 12 pages long from last year, right? So we touch on a lot of different points. So that alone, just following that newspaper column, and you don't have to read it in the newspaper as much as we'd love you to read it there, and so with the newspaper. We publish it online. It's on our LinkedIn page, it's out there. So that's content, and so it doesn't matter whether it's a posting on our Facebook page, a conversation on LinkedIn, Sandra's Business 911 column, the little column that I do. It's the content that I think that's the place to start when it comes to a Chamber of Commerce. If you want to know a little bit about it, just plug yourself in somewhere, and I think we'll impress you with the work that we're doing.
That's interesting. That's very interesting. Okay, so we always end our interviews. If you could give one piece of advice to our listeners that they could take action on today that would benefit their business, What advice would you give them?
Write down 3 words, and the words are market, message, and media. And I spent the majority of my career in media, advertising, marketing, consulting, that sort of thing. And so that's, 20 years of knowledge based in 3 words. So take 3 different pieces of paper, and at the top of one, write market, and then spend a lot of time writing down who your target market is. Who is your customer? Or who are your customers? Maybe you've got a target market and then sort of a sub-target market, right? So, but spend a lot of time clarifying who exactly you're trying to do business with or sell things to. Who's your target market? The second one is message. What is your message to that target market? And if there's a couple of them, you probably got a different message for each one. One might be motivated by price. The other one might be motivated by the fact that you're just down the street, so geography, but whatever. Find the key message to that target market. And then media becomes a lot more easy to pick because it's really what's the most efficient way to get my message to my market. And that might be walking in their door. It might be a letter. It might be a sign out on the street. It might be social media. It might be attending a chamber networking event. Whatever it is, that's the most efficient way to get my message to my target market. And that's a couple of decades of marketing experience speaking there. And that sounds a little cocky, but it's the simplest way that I've ever heard for any business to sit down and really think about how they can grow their business.
I almost hate that we leave that question for last.
I know, right?
I could have done a whole episode just on that one statement. In fact, if you're good with it, we'll have you back sometime. And we'll do an episode on those 3 words, because I'll tell you, what you just said, if the listeners weren't paying close enough attention, hit rewind, go back a minute, and you just nailed it so much on the head. You do those 3 things, your business will change dramatically. You were going to say something.
Well, it's keeping it simple. Sometimes we overcomplicate things, and if you're focused on, as you said, those 3 key areas, that's, you can build your business just based on that.
Yeah, well, and the most common answer I hear when I talk to businesses about their marketing is, I ask who their customer is. Everyone. And that's the worst thing you can possibly ever say in today's world. I don't care if you're online, offline, or whatever. It's a bad choice. So that was fantastic. Hopefully everybody really got what you were saying there. What's that?
Hopefully they're still watching.
Oh, there you go. Of course they are. Gosh dang it, this is the measurement doctor. All right, let's head into the examination room.
Ooh.
It's time for the examination room.
So we have a quote, and we'd love for you to give your take on it today.
So, as Lori was saying, if you haven't heard the podcast before, we always go into the examination room, and since the world is run on quotes, I mean, in reality, we all love them. We wake up to them. They're part of our lives. Yeah, we like to take a quote and actually break it down a little bit more and see how it can apply to either personal development, business development, just growing. Because that's a good reason to listen to quotes, right?
And it's a great way to end the show.
So go ahead.
Okay, so our quote today is by Mark Twain, and it says, "Whenever you find yourself on the side of the majority, it is time to pause and reflect."
Wow.
Yeah.
So what would be your take on that? George always puts me in the hot seat, and I always have to go first.
Yeah, now we got
I don't have to today.
Creative time.
Didn't he also say I wouldn't belong to a club that would have me as a member? Something like that.
No cheating. We'll use that quote another time.
Okay, give it to me again. Sorry, I lost
Okay, that's okay. Whenever you find yourself on the side of the majority, it is time to pause and reflect, by Mark Twain.
Interesting. Oh, I love quotes too, and there's like 6 of them spinning around in my head right now. But first of all, I love it. Yeah. And to me, it kind of speaks to really just trying to be yourself, right? If you find yourself on the side of the majority, then maybe that's what you're trying to do, and it may not necessarily be the best strategy for you. Maybe it's just a call to just stop and check and see if you're really being who you are, if you're being true to yourself, or are you just trying to follow the lemmings over the edge of the cliff, right? Like to me, it's just, there's a real introspection aspect to that. You stop and say, well, hang on a second. Am I just trying to be one of the crowd, or am I being myself?
I like that. I like the lemmings. Yeah, I like it a lot. What do you think, Laura?
Well, it's kind of a man after my own heart. I was going to say, be true to yourself, because, you're not going to get anywhere in life just following the crowd and being what everybody else is. You have to be, if you want to stand out, you have to kind of do something different.
Absolutely. Guys, you guys are both going on the emotional side, eh? Be right true to the self and to the soul.
Okay, so now we're going to get your take. Let's go.
I always have an interesting take when I'm talking to a business and they want to be on social media, for example. And I'll use social media because it's an easy target. Everybody thinks they need to be on social media. And I'll be even more specific. They have to be on Facebook. And I'll always respond with why. And they get surprised. I mean, I'm in digital marketing and I help companies in that field, and they're like, well, why would you even ask that? I mean, everybody's on Facebook. And the reality is, as long as you're following the crowd, you're never going to accomplish the great things that you're capable of. Now, I'm not saying that you should ignore what the crowd is doing. You should be aware of it. That's part of your due diligence in business. But if you're not operating from a perception of what you want to create, what you want to bring as value to the world, to your business, to your customers, then you're one of those lemmings walking off the cliff. And it's time to take a pause and reflect and redigest why you got into what you're doing and really answer those hard questions. So
I do like that.
Yeah. And of course, you can be true to yourself.
Good.
All right, Stu, that's been fantastic. If somebody wants to reach out to you and make contact with you, what's the best way to connect with you?
Probably peterboroughchamber.ca. We've got a staff directory on there. Email, phone, everything is there. Personally, Stu's News at mexicon.net. Stu's News is STOOSNEWS. Should briefly mention, I mentioned earlier just a weekly column that I do. I do something, it's just a volunteer thing, not directly connected to the chamber, but it's a lavish free plug for new businesses or businesses that have done something newsy. Maybe they've moved or won an award or something like that. But it's a regular weekly column. It appears every Monday in the Examiner and Monday nights on Czechs Television, part of their 6 o'clock news. So businessbeat.ca is the place to go for that. You can also contact me there. There's email address and a submit button and all of that sort of thing. So if you're a small business in the Peterborough area and you've got some business news, then I'd love to hear from you.
Awesome.
Perfect. And we'll put all those links in the show notes over at measurementdoctor.com. Incidentally, if you'd like to enter a quote for the examination room, you can also do that on the measurementdoctor.com site under quote, right under quote, and enter it there. I challenge our listeners, if you're not a member of the Chamber of Commerce today, get a hold of your local one and challenge them. Ask them, why do I need to be a member? I thought that was fantastic, the information Stu gave today. And certainly it should be having you think, why am I not tapping into these good resources? Why am I not truly taking advantage of it? So thanks very much for sharing your time, Stu, and thanks for being part of the show.
Yes, we appreciate it very much.
Oh, very much.
All right.
All right.
Have a great day.
You too.
Thank you.